Welcome to Coffee with Linda. I'm Linda. We've got freshly brewed coffee. I even have a cup for you. And your place is set here at the table. We have a special guest today. His name is Henry the Tulip Bulb. And if you've been following the podcast, you know that we've been talking about Henry because he's definitely a mentor of the field of gratitude and developing a sense or an attitude of gratitude in lives. And it's just a really cool thing how Henry came into my life, just because I was asked to write something for a children's program for a TV station. And I was planting tulips around the base of my trees. Henry was birthed when I thought about what does a tulip bulb go through to become a flower. So Henry's here, and he's saying hello. And Henry's slogan is, "It's good for a dude to have a tude, an attitude of gratitude, that is." Well, I'm not much of a rapper, but you get the gist. Anyway, we're going to read the second book of Henry's life as a tulip bulb, and this one is Henry's almost trip to Paris. True story, and it involves my friends, the Boas sisters. And they had promised to take Henry to Paris with them, then on to Egypt, and you're going to find out what actually really and truly happened to Henry, and how Henry learned a very valuable lesson from a very big disappointment. And I know I've had big disappointments in my life, just like everybody has. And there are ways that we can overcome that disappointment if we have a good attitude in no matter where we're going through. And I remember like in Psalm 23 where it says that he prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Sometimes you have to push through to get to the table. Sometimes you have to go through the valley through the shadow of death to get to the good thing. And so I hope today that this little story about Henry the Tulip Bulb encourages you and inspires you that no matter what disappointment you're facing or have gone through, that you know that there's a God who loves you and you can do all things through Christ, his son. So let's start this Henry's almost trip to Paris. Well, I can tell you this. They did honor their word. They did take him to Paris. They did take him to Egypt. And I have the photographs to prove it. So let's get started. I'm going to put my glasses on, and it's not like I don't know the book, but I just don't want to miss anything. And there again, in all of the Henry the Tulip Bulb books, the subtitle is always Developing an Attitude of Gratitude. I always include a special page, because I'm the illustrator too, of where you can gift the Henry books to someone else. So you might keep that in mind when you're out there looking for some books for children or families or adults. I like to say that the message of Henry is good for 2-year-olds to 102-year-olds, because we all can use that little reminder to keep our eyes on the sky and to be thankful in everything. Okay, so let's get started. Henry is a tulip bulb, and Henry's big dream was always to travel to Paris. He wanted to eat in Parisian cafes, sketch in its parks, discuss art at night with his friends, fellow flowers like the yellow buttercups, exotic orchids, and the iridescent irises. Here's Henry dreaming big dreams of Paris and the cafes. Some of Henry's friends, the Boas sisters, Debbie, Marina, Stormy, and Carol, arranged a trip to those Parisian streets and then on to Egypt, where they planned to take Henry and photograph him in all his favorite places. But alas, what happened next was a big surprise to everyone. The women packed and primped until the day finally came to depart. Excitedly, they called Papa Joe, their taxi driver, to pick them up and take them to the cruise ship's docks. There they are in all their boa beautiness. Joe drove hurriedly. It was rush hour, and the streets had become really backed up with cars everywhere. The Boa sisters' luggage bounced around the taxi as Papa Joe wove in and out between traffic. As the taxi approached the port, the Boa sisters quickly gathered up their bags, banged open the doors, and ran down the dock so as not to miss the boat, leaving something very important in the back window of the taxi. There's their ship. Can you see Henry? You can see. There he is. He's wailing his arms. I kind of have a thing for this little guy, you know. Why, they'd forgotten all about poor little Henry. Henry looked out the window with tears trickling down his face. He groaned as he watched the sisters dashing up the ramp and running on to the big ship. There he is, in the back of the taxi, all alone. All alone am I. No, I'm not going to do that to you. All right. Had he learned French for naught? Had he brushed up on his art skills just to have them dashed to pieces? Had he bought a red beret and new shoelaces just to store them in a drawer? Henry fidgeted with his shoes and looked upward. Ah, Paris. It truly was his lifelong dream. The art, the flowers, the music, and let's not forget the food, especially the French bread. I think he was blowing his nose right about then. Poor Henry. And then, as originally planned, he was supposed to go on to Egypt, to the pyramids where the hieroglyphics stand tall, Cleopatra, the Sphinx, etc., etc. He was supposed to have been photographed with his friends there. But most of all, there was to be Paris. Oui, Paris. Henry blew his nose and wiped his tears as he thought of all the wonderful sights that he was now missing. As the taxi backed away from the dock, Papa Joe thought he saw something in his rear-view mirror and winced, realizing that Henry had been forgotten. There's Papa Joe in his cap. That evening, when his shift was over, Papa Joe carefully picked up Henry and carried him to his home to meet his family. Joe's little girl, Emily, greeted them at the front door with much surprise and happiness. Emily agreed to take very good care of Henry. There's Papa Joe coming up the sidewalk to see the little girl, and she's going to take very good care of Henry. The next day, Emily walked with Henry to her school for show and tell. She told Henry's story to her class, how he prepared for his trip to Paris, and then he was, left behind. Emily's teacher, Miss Modenbeck, suddenly had a great idea. There they are in the classroom. Emily and Henry and Miss Modenbeck and the other students. Why doesn't Henry come back tomorrow for a Parisian day where he could teach the children how to draw and greet one another in French? Wow, that would be so awesome. Everybody in the class cheered. It would be wonderful. Woohoo! Yippee! Yay! The next day, Henry dressed carefully. He threaded the new laces in his shoes and purposefully placed his red beret on top of his head. A beret is a little French hat, in case you didn't know. I have lots of berets. I love berets. In fact, I think I was about 12 years old and my daddy got me a mink beret for Christmas one year, and I literally wore it out. Loved it. Anyway, as Henry approached the school, he heard accordion music and saw an ark. "Oh my, it's just like the Arc de Triomphe," he exclaimed. "There was even a sign in front of the school that said, 'Welcome to Paris, Bienvenue.'" There he is in front of the school. Look at the little ark they made. They really wanted to surprise and welcome Henry. He's so excited. With that, Henry became really excited and overwhelmed with a huge feeling of gratitude. The still small voice filled Henry with hope and happiness. That's not a bulb that could get much happier, would you agree? Okay. Emily's classroom was decorated with the Eiffel Tower, and the hallways were adorned with little sidewalk cafes and fresh flowers. Henry was so hungry he could hardly believe his eyes when he saw the wonderful French food. They had la au chocolat, French bread, salad, and snails. Escargot. Have you ever had snails? Wow. It was a wonderful cafe experience. Even lunch in the cafeteria was very special that day. Why, there was escargot, as I explained, and that's French for snails, by the way, with slices of French bread dipped in melted butter and garlic. Ooh, I'm getting hungry. And a crispy, leafy salad with, of course, French dressing. There's Henry in the cafeteria with all the other students. Can you imagine having that kind of food for lunch? Wow. So this is what I prepared for, thought Henry. Who would have thought? It's sure a good thing for a dude to have an attitude of gratitude, that is. The voice spoke again. "Henry, I love you, and this is good for you." Ever hear those words before? Henry looked upward and thought, why, something good can come out of anything. Things like making all these new friends and learning to never give up on your dreams. Your plans may not turn out exactly as you thought, but when you give them up, they can be even better. Even when you think you've been forgotten, you really haven't. Henry wiped his eyes with his beret and cried, thank you, voice, for making all things possible. Until next time, bye-bye and au revoir, mon ami." And with that, Henry thought, hey, I wonder where my next trip will be. Psalm 37:4 says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." And that's the story of Henry's almost trip to Paris. Thanks for being with us. Hope you enjoyed it. Bonjour, au revoir, and bon appetit. See you in the kitchen. Bye-bye.